Today I'm going to be learning about Canadian food. Now, of course I know about things like poutine. For me, being from the UK, something we eat after we've been out drinking at night or something is like chips and cheese. Usually there's gravy or curry sauce on top. So in a way kind of similar to poutine. Although I've never tried poutine, I would absolutely love to try it. It looks like right up my street. And I know obviously Canada's famous for things like maple syrup and bacon, like such high quality, but I'm looking forward to finding out what else Canada has to offer. This video I'm going to check out today is called Iconic Canadian Foods You Need to Try Before You Die. So interesting title. This, I believe, is a beaver tail. That's something I learned about on one of my previous videos, and that again, because I have such a sweet tooth, actually looked ideal to me. Tell me what you think about Beavertails. It's something I hadn't ever heard of before watching these videos and doing these reactions. But I would love to try. I might even try and make it sometime. If you want to see a video of me trying to make Beavertails, tell me in the comments. But let's watch this video and see some more Canadian food.
Does fried dough topped with peanut butter, chocolate, and Reese's Pieces sound absolutely delicious to you?
Yes.
What about a perfectly made bagel with a surprising hint of sweetness? If you said yes, then you might just be a fan of Canadian cuisine. One of the most famous Canadian...
Okay, yeah, so just before we get onto this, tell me what your favourite food from Canada is. Tell me about any foods that maybe people outside Canada don't know about that are popular. And tell me if there's like certain foods from each region that are popular within that region and not really anywhere else in Canada.
Canadian culinary exports is undoubtedly poutine. This Quebecois dish consists of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy. The demand for poutine is so immense that
Even
major
McDonald's?
fast food chains like McDonald's and Burger King have included it on their Canadian menus.
Are they still
And there's
on it?
even an annual Major League Poutine eating contest. Poutine's origins are hotly debated, with many restaurants understandably wanting to claim to be the spot that started the sensation. But it just seems wrong to fight about this when there's so much deep-fried, gravy-covered, cheesy goodness to go around.
Poutine has gone from a Quebec snack bar favorite to a standout dish in many restaurants.
Almost every country in the world
Tortilla. Okay, so that was poutine. I mean, when I watched Canada videos showing like the nature and the beauty of Canada, I get the same feeling seeing poutine, man. It looks so enjoyable, it looks so tasty. Tell me if there's like a certain way to make it that's the authentic way. I've seen some videos before, like some food eating challenges and stuff where the people doing the challenges saying the poutine wasn't really authentic, but tell me what the best way to have poutine is. But for me, it looks amazing. Tortilla, I've never heard of. It looks like a pie, but let's find out.
has some version of a meat pie. Britain has steak and kidney, and empanadas are the stuffed pastry of choice throughout Latin America. Americans, of course, are big fans of a good old-fashioned chicken pot pie. As for Canadians, they love a delicious tortilla. Tortilla is a baked meat pie that consists of a bottom layer of pie pastry and a meat-filling center. Then it's topped with another covering of pie pastry before being baked in an oven. The meats used for tortilla are traditionally pheasant, rabbit, moose, or pigeon, though more contemporary versions can include pork, beef, or veal. It's traditionally served during the holidays, which makes sense as the spice mix includes cinnamon, clove, allspice, and nutmeg. Our favorite tortilla-related tradition is that it's meant to be shared with family and friends. It doesn't get much more Canadian than that, eh? It's hard to think of...
Okay, I had no idea that pies were so popular in Canada, or that was one of Canada's foods, because I've seen people from the USA talk about like British food before and they just can't get over, they can't understand meat pies. Like obviously they're very popular like in the UK. I love pies, any type of pie, any savoury pie, sweet pies also, but that one looks even better because it's got like that game meat. It's not like your standard chicken and beef. This is like some pheasant, some different animals. And I like the idea that it's actually meant to be shared. It's not just like an individual pie. It's actually something you can share with your family. And I like that type of food. Here in Asia, that's the type of food that you get everywhere. It's always sharing with family, sharing with other people. So I like to see that part of Canada. Tell me if you like that type of pie. What's your favourite filling for it as well? Next, we've got maple syrup, which I've already said on my videos before. I've been a fan of maple syrup since I was a child. I think my dad took me to McDonald's for pancakes and syrup the first time. And since then, I've always loved syrup, always loved maple syrup.
Canadian food and not have maple syrup pop into your head. After all, the country's flag features the maple leaf as the bright and beaming center of attention, and deservedly so. As of 2020, Canada is reportedly the world's leading producer and exporter of maple products, accounting for 79% of the global market. Maple syrup and maple sugar products are created from the gathering and cooking of maple tree sap, which is collected by the tapping of the trees. These techniques were originally discovered by indigenous peoples and later adopted by French settlers. Maple syrup is so prevalent in Canada that it's sneaked its way into many otherwise traditionally unsweetened foods and beverage items, such as tea bags and protein powder. Of course, its hand in the dessert industry is also significant, with treats like maple cookies and maple candies readily available for Canucks with a sweet tooth.
What is
Your
that?
mama didn't teach you how to chug? Come on, Thorn. Come on, Thorn. Oh.
In movies, there's also the other one where like Elf like takes the syrup and he pours it all over the spaghetti and stuff. So it's like obviously in popular culture, it's very, very commonly seen. But come on, man, maple syrup, it's just so perfectly like for things like French toast, pancakes. There's not a better topping, in my opinion, anyway. Tell me if you agree with that or not. How do you like to eat your maple syrup? What's the best way? What's something I might not have thought about, a way of using it, or on any other type of food? Like they mentioned there, you can get it in like cookies and, I mean, protein shake. I have never seen that before, but maple syrup for me is just like the perfect addition to anything sweet, man. Just add on that extra sweetness, get that extra diabetes like swirling through your veins. But enjoyable, man. Next, I think this is Beavertails, so let's check this one out.
The Beavertail is a Canadian national treasure. From British Columbia to Nova Scotia, so many Canadians have a soft spot for this chewy treat, made from hand-stretched wheat dough. While the traditional version is topped with a simple dusting of cinnamon and sugar, the Beavertail has evolved over the years into more than just a dessert, depending on where you are in Canada. For example, in Vancouver, you can get a salmon tail, which substitutes the standard sweet topping for a combination of cream cheese and capers. In Mont-Tremblant, you can pick up a ham and cheese tail or a steak top tail. A specialty of Halifax is the triple trip beaver tail, which is topped with peanut butter, chocolate, and Reese's Pieces. There's even a popular Canadian restaurant chain called Beavertails, which has been serving up this iconic indulgence since 1978. The butter tart is one sugar.
Okay, man, I am all on board for Beavertails, man. They just look so good. Look at that. And I never knew you could get savoury versions as well. So tell me more about that. Yeah, like she mentioned, that it like differs or dependent on regions and location in Canada. Like, but yeah, I guess it's just like a sort of dough, man. I guess you can have that savoury with the ham and cheese and that sort of thing, and it would still taste good. But for me, the sweet one definitely looks the most enticing, sounds the most enticing. Tell me what your favourite Beavertail topping is and why.
Iconic indulgence since 1978. The butter tart is one sugary sweet dessert that certainly deserves its highly esteemed reputation. A traditional Canadian butter tart is a tiny pastry with a wonderfully runny or semi-solid center. The filling is made from butter, sugar, syrup, and egg, then poured into a pastry shell and baked until the filling is semi-solid or runny, depending on your preference. And then it's finished off with a crunchy top. As noted by food bloggers of Canada, the Women's Auxiliary of the Royal Victoria Hospital Cookbook contains the first documented recipe for butter tarts. Published in 1900 in Barrie, Ontario, this appears to be the source that started it all. The original versions were made with maple sugar, freshly churned butter, and dried fruit, such as raisins or currants. They gained popularity in the 1920s, and the rest is beautifully buttery history. Much like
I mean, it's ironic that the book that was found in had was related to the hospital, man, because it seems to me after eating one of them, man, that is how you get heart disease, man. I have a sweet tooth and like Beavertails and things like chocolate and stuff. I can get on board, but that thing was like taking sweetness to the next level, man. It must be so rich with the butter, the sugar and that sort of thing as well. But I mean, again, I would 100% love to try that. And I've never seen that before, never heard of it. Tell me how it is to actually taste it. Is it that sweet? I'm sure it's one of these things you can't eat too many of them, or you'll just be feeling like dizzy and feeling like lightheaded and stuff like that.
Like the butter tart, the Nanaimo Bar is yet another deliciously decadent Canadian dessert. Constructed of a graham cracker crumb and shredded coconut base, a custard-flavored butter icing in the center, and a chocolate ganache on top, the Nanaimo Bar is a 3-layered, no-bake delight that's famous throughout the country. The Nanaimo Bar is so popular that its origins are hotly disputed, as everyone wants a piece of the coconutty credit. According to legend, a group of friends from Nanaimo, British Columbia, found the recipe in the Vancouver Sun. At the time, it was known as chocolate fridge cake, and the friends changed the name in honor of their hometown. The recipe made its way throughout the province's communities, circulated by housewives and home bakers. This story's validity is unconfirmed, but it has a nice ring to it, so we'll happily spread it. The bars enjoyed a rise to fame during Expo 86 in Vancouver, and they've been a national jewel ever since.
People there seem to take the Nanaimo Bar very seriously.
Montreal's
Okay, Nanaimo Bar. Again, I've never heard of that before. What I've seen so far, all of these items, it's definitely giving me the impression that Canadians have a sweet tooth. Tell me if that's actually accurate or not, but again, I love cakes, desserts like that, where it's like the 3 layers, you got that ganache, the filling, then the bottom, the sort of crumbly, biscuity base type thing. In the UK, we have one that's millionaire, I think I have it everywhere, but like millionaire shortcake, where it's the biscuit, the caramel and the chocolate. That's one of my favourite cakes, but that one actually looks very good as well. I love coconut, so that would definitely work for me.
travel website describes the city's signature smoked meat as a beef brisket that's often piled high between rye bread and served with mustard and a fresh dill pickle. Unlike New York-style pastrami, Montreal smoked meat uses the entire brisket, whereas the NYC deli equivalent is taken from the much leaner navel cut. The spice mix is also different, with pastrami heavier on the sugar and Montreal meat relying more on black peppercorn and other spices. Montreal smoked meat is so popular that it's now popping up in many other culinary preparations, such as atop poutine and as a pizza topping. Many deli counters and restaurants in Montreal all claim to have the best version. It's a hotly debated topic, but we think the only responsible choice is to hop on a plane to Montreal and decide for yourself.
Now this would be a lot easier to eat if I wasn't getting the stink eye from the gentleman behind the camera. Yes, I'll save you half.
That's nice of him, but yeah, like, again, when I seen that, it did remind me of like New York deli, sliced meat and stuff like that, but obviously this is Canada's own version, Montreal's own. And yeah, again, really like it. I love the combination with mustard when you get that sort of tender meat with the mustard and some nice bread. Like that's savoury heaven. Tell me if that's popular in other parts of Canada as well, or is it really something that's only in Montreal that it's popular?
Jumping into the sugar-coated fun of the other delicious desserts on this list, Saskatoon Berry Pie is a regional trademark of Western Canada. The tasty appeal of these berries, which grow from the plains to the coast of British Columbia, dates all the way back to their use by Canada's Indigenous peoples. They were often ground into a paste and dried for winter storage. They've since made a name for themselves in the Canadian pastry world, and interestingly enough, they're protected by the Catalogue of Foods known as the International Arc of Taste. Saskatoon berries are similar to blueberries in both appearance and flavor, though they're harder and have smaller seeds. They are also drier and earthier in flavor. Served in many Saskatchewan and Alberta pastry shops and confectionaries, the famous Saskatoon Berry Pie is made from flour, pastry, butter, eggs, and of course, Saskatoon berries. Often paired with vanilla ice cream or whipped cream, this pie is a Canadian culinary treasure.
Lots of Saskatoon berries, yeah.
Yeah, when they mentioned Saskatoon Berry Pie, I thought it was like the pie itself, as in the creation was from Saskatoon. I didn't realise there was something called a Saskatoon berry. So yeah, she mentioned how it differs to like was it a blueberry or a blackberry there, but it's obviously got its own unique flavour profile as well. So yeah, I mean, that pie as well, that's something I've never really seen, a berry pie like that, because it looked absolutely packed. Obviously I've had like apple pies and different types of pies like that, but a berry pie, when you see so many, it does actually sound so good, man. I can imagine the flavour, that sharpness coming from the berries mixed with the sweetness from the ice cream. Yeah, this is making me hungry, honestly.
If you grew up in the United States, chances are you know Peameal Bacon as Canadian bacon. Unlike its fattier cousin that consists of strips of belly, the Peameal variety is lean pork loin that's been brined and rolled in cornmeal. During the mid-1800s, Canada would export its pork to England, which was experiencing a shortage at the time. For preservation purposes, the pork was rolled in ground yellow peas, which is where the name peameal comes from. Sometime later, the ground peas were swapped for cornmeal, but the name stuck, at least in Canada. For Americans, though, it will always be known as Canadian bacon. From Eggs Benedict to baked beans, the possibilities for Peameal Bacon are endless. And you may already be a fan yourself, even if you're only just now learning about the correct name. The classically Canadian...
Yeah, so Canadian bacon, I feel like that's one of the most famous foods in the world. Everybody knows Canadian bacon. It's like a sign of high quality. If you're from Canada, would you say that Canadian bacon, and I know obviously it's its own style compared to other types of bacon, but would you say that's the best type of bacon in the world? I know that, like, I think Denmark has a reputation for producing great bacon also, but I guess it's probably a different type. But I don't think I've ever tried Canadian bacon. Definitely would love to try it as well. I mean, now living in Asia, it's very hard to get like things like this, apart from it being supremely expensive. But one day I'll try.
Canadian Caesar cocktail may be a drink instead of a food, but it's so often served with edible garnishes that we decided it was safe to count it, especially since it's basically a magic potion for curing a hangover. Sometimes known as the Bloody Caesar, this drink is made of vodka, clam juice, tomato juice, spices, and Worcestershire sauce. It's typically served in a highball glass that's been rimmed with celery salt and topped with any number of garnishes, from celery to olives to lime wedges to pickles to even shrimp or bacon. There are even versions complete with hot wings and onion rings, so make sure you have plenty of room in your belly.
The Caesar really is a national cocktail in Canada by parliamentary decree.
The Caesar was invented in 1969 by restaurant worker Walter Chell, who was an employee of the Calgary Inn. As the inn prepared to open a new restaurant, Chell was asked to create a cocktail to commemorate the occasion. In 2006, the Caesar was ranked number 13 on the CBC TV show The Greatest Canadian Invention. Then, in 2009, it received a rather prestigious honor for its 40th anniversary, as Calgary Mayor David Bronconnier declared that the Thursday before Victoria Day, every May, would be Caesar Day. Later that year, Canada Dry Mott's launched an online petition to make the Caesar the official cocktail of Canada. And it would be a fitting distinction, as Canadians order more than 350 million Caesar cocktails every year. All we can say is cheers, but maybe hold the onion rings. If you're...
Okay, I have never heard of a Caesar before. It looks like similar to like a kind of, is it a Bloody Mary or something? But these type of drinks, I've never really been a fan of that sort of flavour of drink for some reason. But I never knew it had such significance and importance in Canada. Like, it's the 13th best invention in Canada, it mentioned, or something like that. But it's obviously very highly thought of in Canada. Tell me if you've tried it. 350 million of those are drunk per year in Canada. And Canada is obviously, what, 30 million people? So it's like 5 per person per year on average. That's insane. Tell me if you've drank. I mean, of course, if you're watching, you probably drank that before. Is it as good as they say? I would love to try it, actually.
For American, New York is probably the first place you think of when bagels come to mind. And that would be fair, as the Big Apple undoubtedly has some of the best bagels in the world. Chewy but never doughy, beautifully crusted with a glistening sheen, delicately tangy but never overpowering, New York bagels have earned their glowing reputation. But upon further investigation and research, you'll discover that they have a worthy rival up north in Montreal. While the two types have their similarities, the main difference is in the cooking process. Montreal bagels are first boiled in water that's been sweetened, usually with honey, whereas New York-style bagels are boiled without the sweet addition. Montreal bagels are also traditionally baked in a wood-fired oven, resulting in a richer, more flavorful crust. They're often a bit smaller than their sometimes massive New York cousins, and they're also traditionally studded with sesame and/or poppy seeds. Another notable difference is the topping choice. While New Yorkers and lovers of New York-style bagels everywhere tend to top their bagels high with everything from cream cheese to fried eggs to lox, Canadians often enjoy their Montreal bagels plain, without adornment at all. With that delicious honey-induced sweetness already baked in, any topping would simply be superfluous.
And so as a Montrealer, you come to develop this strong attachment to bagels.
There are a lot of
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like when she mentioned how it's actually cooked, it makes sense that you can just eat that on its own and the flavour is enough to satisfy you, which is Cool as well, man. So I've already seen a couple of things here from Montreal. Is Montreal known as like a bit of a food haven in Canada? Is it known for its cuisine? Is there any other cities in Canada that come close to Montreal for its food culture? But yeah, I just had bagels yesterday, funnily enough. We were in a cafe, a restaurant, I had it, and they were serving it with like beef burger on it. It was actually really nice, nicer than it maybe sounds, but we got that and got some. I've got some in my kitchen we took away, but I'm a fan of bagels actually.
Treats on this list. And
Tart
for
with
that
so
reason
much
alone,
sugar.
we're having a difficult time stopping ourselves from booking a one-way ticket to the land of maple syrup. In the meantime, we'll be salivating over our next Canadian confection selection, the tarte à sucre, also known as sugar pie. Simple in all the best ways, this dessert happens to be a favorite of Canadian native and top chef judge Gail Simmons. It's filled with a mixture of cream, maple syrup, sugar, and lots of butter, then baked to golden perfection. As a holiday tradition in Quebec, many French-Canadian families consider the tarte à sucre to be an integral part of their holiday meals. Served at the end of a festive feast, a slice of sugar pie is often topped with a simple, luscious dollop of whipped cream, needing no further adornment.
Whoa, Canadian food looks so good. I mean, there's definitely a lot of sweetness running through that, but you can see some good savoury meat products, that tender meat. You've got the poutine. There's some good savoury stuff in there. So tell me what your favourite food from Canada is and why. Tell me what region has the best food. Tell me which city has the best food as well. For me, if I look at all of them, what's the one I want to try is probably definitely still poutine, man. I've never tried it, but I want to try that. I know it's like Canada's national dish. But tell me what you think about all of these and what's your favourite food from Canada. Thanks.